Andrew Heinzler, Charlemagne. Frankish ruler Charlemagne and his relationship with Pope Leo III and the surprise crowning of Charlemagne Emperor of Rome is one of the most astounding and surprising shifting of power in history. Charlemagne did not like Pope Leo III and would not have attended Christmas Day Mass if he would have known about the event that was about to take place. His grandfather Charles Martel and father Pepin the Short's rule helped the Frankish Empire succeed and set up a great kingdom for Charlemagne, and Pope Leo III wanted some of the power. The Western Roman Empire has fallen due to a variety of issues. Notable among them, the Huns from 386 to 535 CE started invading from the steppe east and stirring up the Germanic tribes, forcing them to flee west in a great migration. These Germanic, Gaul, and Celtic tribes started to inhabit old Roman cities. Tribes like the Lombards, Vandals, Goths, Franks, and Visigoths appear on the scene. Julius Caesar, in his book, The Gallic Wars, are getting provisions for his legions, and the traders describe the Germans were men of huge stature, of incredible valor, and practice in arms that oftentimes they, on encountering them, could not bear even their countenance and the fierceness of their eye. Tacitus, in his book, Germania, says that all have fierce blue eyes, red hair, huge frames. These Germanic tribes will fight and be brought under the Frankish Empire throughout its history. Moving forward to 700 CE, we have a man named Charles Martel of the Franks, who was Charlemagne's grandfather. Charles Martel was merciless and expanded the empire and fought against the formidable Germanic tribes. Charles Martel also fought in a victorious skirmish against the Umayyad Caliphate in the Battle of Tours, or also called the Battle of Poitiers, was a battle that saved Christianity. After this battle, Charles is known as the Hammer. It was a decisive battle that stopped the invasion of the Caliphate and allowed the Franks to survive. After Charles died, his son Pepin the Short, 714 to 768, Charlemagne's father, took over the kingdom. He wanted reform. Pepin decided to get rid of the Merovingian dynasty, which was a puppet dynasty in power at the time. Pepin was legitimized by the Pope Zachary and crowned king, ushering in the Carolingian dynasty. Pepin started keeping good relations with the Pope. King Pepin took an interest in Greek language and literature to gain support of the Pope. After Pepin died, the empire was split in two between Charlemagne and his brother Carloman. Carloman ended up dying and Charlemagne took over as king. Not much is known about Charlemagne's early life. The Franks failed in keeping records of his childhood. Charlemagne started a conquest expanding his empire east. This conquest was not for land, but more that Charlemagne wanted to be a good Christian king and felt it was his duty to convert as many pagans as he could. A major notable event was when Charlemagne conquered the Saxons and destroyed their sacred tree, Irminsul, a symbol of their religion. This sent an extraordinarily strong message to other pagan tribes. Charlemagne is going to convert all pagan tribes to Christianity. Pope Leo III is a new pope that needs support. Charlemagne does not like the new Pope Leo. The Eastern Roman Empire still exists. It is ruled by a woman named Irene of the Byzantines, who was promoted by her son Constantine VI. She is a victim of sexism. Pope is looking for a Roman emperor, and Irene was female. They wanted a male. On Christmas Day, 801 CE, Charlemagne goes to Mass in the Basilica of St. Peter, where Pope Leo III is to celebrate and feast. During this event, Charlemagne is kneeling to pray, and when he stands up, the Pope surprised Charlemagne by placing a crown on his head, announcing before the congregation he was Emperor Augustus. Charlemagne did not want the shift of power to come from the Pope. Einhard's biography, The Life of Charlemagne, says, "It was then he received the titles of Emperor and Augustus, to which he at first had such an aversion that he declared that he would have never set foot in the church the day that he was conferred." although it was a great feasting day, if he could have foreseen the design of the Pope. Pope Leo III appointing Charlemagne emperor gave the power of divinity back to the church and not the king. Ideally, crowning yourself emperor infers power of divinity is from God himself. It appears as if Pope Leo III has the divinity from God to appoint an emperor, which is a huge power play. This excerpt from Einhard shows Charlemagne's frustration with the Pope's plan. It also exemplifies his personality. Even though it's this event that Charlemagne regretted going to, he still had second thoughts due to the great Christmas feast that day. It seems Charlemagne was conflicted over being emperor and missing a good Christmas Day feast. This is such a major event in history that Napoleon made sure to crown himself emperor some 1,000 years later from this example. He would be crowned like Charlemagne and force Charlemagne's heir, Emperor Francis II, to abdicate his title of Holy Roman Empire. It was planned to crown Napoleon like Charlemagne, but he had alternate plans. Harold J. Christopher's Napoleon describes the event. The coronation ceremony was a theatrical triumph. The Cathedral of Notre Dame had been so thoroughly redecorated inside and out for the occasion that it had become almost unrecognizable. God himself would lose his bearings, a spectator observed. At the climactic moment, Napoleon, to everyone's surprise, took the crown out of the Pope's hand, standing erect, crowned himself, then placed the crown on the kneeling Josephine. Napoleon sent a strong message crowning himself instead of the Pope doing it. Charlemagne was illiterate, but made sure his empire was not. The Carolingian Renaissance brought scholars from all of the empire to educate and keep his kingdom literate. Even though Charlemagne was illiterate, he spoke and understood languages very well. This was a vital skill for a king who could not read. The last 7 days of his life, he spent in a winter camp with the Archbishop of Cologne. He had succumbed to a fever. Fried, in his book Charlemagne, explains, early on the morning of 28 January, a Saturday, the dying emperor crossed himself as prescribed in the liturgy. On his forehead, chest, and abdomen, folded his arms across his chest, crossed his legs, closed his eyes, and committed himself to God with a verse from the Psalms on his lips. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord God of truth. Psalms 31:5. When he died, he crowned his son Louis the Pious as king. Charlemagne was a good Christian king, expanding his empire, uniting Germanic tribes. The relationship between Pope Leo III and Charlemagne is such a struggle for power, and the drama that ensues after being crowned Emperor of Rome is one of the most spectacular events in history. This is an ancient coin from 812 to 814 CE, somewhere in there. It's Carolus Imperator Augustus, translates to Charles Emperor Augustus. This coin mirrors some of the ancient Roman coins. Dr. Brinkman, a Greco-Roman specialist at Missouri State University, showed us in a guest lecture in early March 2022 on Rome. Abbreviated as Carlos, IMP, Imp, AVG, Augustus in Latin. Either Charlemagne is depicted here as a Roman, or it is a depiction of what a Roman Caesar would look like. There's a fig leaf crown, a typical Roman head adornment, and what looks like a crown or a toga, or a cape or a toga. There's no doubt that this piece of currency is to represent Charlemagne as an emperor, not a king. Here's my bibliography page with my primary sources. This one here is the literature. Einhard is a bibliographer that was close to Charlemagne. And this one right here, the denarius of Charlemagne, is the coin that I described. Secondary sources are all right here, including these are the sources for the artwork in my slides. From the information I could gather, I tried to cite them as best I could. Thank you.